Any functional society, almost any society that's ever existed, has something to do with brilliant, imaginative, but extremely impractical people. We don't know what to do with them anymore. We just, like, they're all living in their mother's basements saying weird things on the internet, and you can't tell which are crazy and which actually have something to contribute. You used to put them in academia, but now academia is all about self-marketing. If you want to maximize the possibility, and I'll end with this, of unexpected breakthroughs, it's pretty obvious, what the best policy is. You get a bunch of creative people, you give them the resources they need for a certain amount of time, you maybe let them hang out with each other, but basically you leave them alone. And most of them are going to end up not coming up with anything at all, but a few of them will probably come up with something that'll even surprise themselves. If you want to minimize the possibility of unexpected breakthroughs, take those same people and then tell them they're not going to get any resources at all unless they spend the majority of their time competing with one another to prove to you they already know what they're going to create. Well, that's the system we have, and it's incredibly effective in stifling any possibility of innovation. The one thing that's not a scarce resource in the world is imaginative people with possible solutions to intractable problems. There's probably nobody in the entire world that doesn't have some idea that we would never have thought of, and we're both pretty smart guys. And the problem is that the overwhelming majority of those people go around every day being told to shut up. How do you unleash that? I mean, that's my basic question, and that's why I'm interested in these broader political questions, because if one could unleash that creativity really, then I think a lot of the things we think of as problems will fall, these supposed dead ends of technological, social thinking that we've hit, would seem ridiculous. I mean, there's people out there could probably come up with cold fusion. There's people out there that could probably come up with almost anything you can imagine. Right now, they're sitting around trying to pay off their father's debt on the rice plantation and spending all their time in a shoe factory. That's what I'm concerned with. How do we get those guys in on the game? There are certain types of economic policy which would unleash your creativity, which is the other factor, because money isn't just measuring the value of stuff. It's also measuring the value of human actions, and it's also a promise of future creativity. And that's the thing. What are the forms of money creation or economics in general that will do that? Again, going back to the question of all those people with the ideas who basically are told to shut up all the time. Some people often criticize me, for example, for sometimes putting in a good word for basic income, which is actually something that there are certain elements of the left and the right can support. I think of it as partly as an anti-bureaucratic thing, that actually reduce the size of government and not have all these bureaucrats looking over everybody's shoulder, telling them, making them feel bad about themselves all the time. If you simply gave people a basic income support, it would mean that you're trusting them to decide how they want to contribute to society. Ironically, a lot of the social welfare policies, which you think of as stifling, were also, actually unleashed creativity in ways that we only know now that they're gone. I live in England. It used to be, since the 60s at least, every 5 years there'd be some amazing new band or musical trend that would just sweep the world coming out of England. And that's all kind of stopped since Tony Blair, really. And I asked people there, well, what happened, And everybody says the same thing. They got rid of the dole. All those guys were on unemployment. And they were squatting too, so they got rid of squatting. It used to be there'd be free housing, and you'd have a base. It wouldn't be much, but you'd have enough money that you could get your friends together with a guitar, and maybe 1 out of 1,000 of them was John Lennon, but that's enough, And now John Lennon is lifting boxes in some department store as welfare conditionality. We're never going to hear the new trend. So I just think that that techniques which just leave it up to people on the broad scale to innovate in their own ways would actually be much more effective in creating the conditions where all these things both of us want to see would happen. And that's why I'm interested in those broader questions, because at the moment I think the system we have is very much about tying people down. What I look forward to is a social order where people are sufficiently are sufficiently secure in their basic needs that they can sort of affiliate with each other around those things which they think are of larger value. But you have to guarantee that people aren't, debt slaves, and they aren't running around desperately trying to survive before you're going to be, they're going to be free to form those voluntary associations on that scale to do that kind of thing.